Hi there, and welcome to my newest devlog. There isn't really a theme this time because I've worked on quite a few different things, all very necessary, some a few very scary, but all with a good end eventually, I believe. So yeah, without further ado, let's jump in and see what I have in store for you. We're starting off pretty basic, staff aiming. So the funny thing is that initially the magic system was built for weapons, like melee weapons, and yes, staffs were an afterthought, so you can actually use staffs now for manual aiming. The next one is a bit bigger. This is strafing and dodging while locked on. Initially, when you were locked on, you were just dive rolling in any direction still, but now you're actually more focused on your target. The next one you might have already seen walking in the background, which is a companion. One of the stats you can put points in is charisma, and for charisma you're going to be using that primarily on your companions. So this is a pretty big part to the game that I hadn't added yet, and it's here now. And you eventually, or initially, start out with a companion through the main quest, but you can also get new companions either through quests or right here what I've implemented already is at the bar. You can hire them for money or if you have high enough charisma. Because of the addition of companions, I've also added 2 new spell types, which are healing spells and stun spells. These support spells match very well with the companion gameplay, so they will be buffed by the charisma stat. Next up is something that really scared me. In the background you can currently see NPCs messing around with their walking, glitching out, and I was always under the presumption that that was my code doing that, and I would get to that and I would fix it. The last few weeks I found out it wasn't. It was, well, I guess it was, but it was under the assumption that Unity's navmesh system was working properly, but it wasn't. It was pretending that it had gotten a path for my NPCs already, while in actuality it was still trying to calculate it in the background, resulting in NPCs just walking around like nothing. So instead of loading the entire navmesh at the start of loading or generating a new map, I have switched to a small navmesh that keeps updating around the player. I've got it to work properly enough right now. It works without too much dents in the frames per second sometimes, so I'm happy with the result, and this really helps me go forward. Next up are a few extra enemies I've added in the meantime as well. The first one is a floating rock enemy. We have another like rock golem enemy that I've added, and a more humanoid rock themed enemy as well. I also took the opportunity to do a few changes to the dungeon system. Instead of the mistake I had before where dungeons would go from lower level to higher level, you now start higher and you actually go down, which makes more sense. And the other one is the boss room. Boss rooms were usually just tiny rooms, no space for the actual boss fight. I've cleared that now. It's a large open room. It's missing the core still. The walls look very messy, but I'll get to that later. At least you can now properly fight the boss. Also updated the boss fight a little bit. It's still glitchy, but it's getting better. So yeah, progress. Next up is probably the biggest piece of work I've worked on in the last few months. Something that really annoyed me was the loading time, or just the time it took to generate a new island. There's quite a few things that go into it. The whole terrain needs to be generated, cities need to be generated, quests have to be generated, NPC, everything. So it takes quite a lot of time. And instead of just watching a loading screen the whole time, I wanted something more interactive. So I've layered the entire character creation screen over the island generation algorithm, which does mean that sometimes, and I'm still improving this, the frame rate drops. I've already improved this quite a lot compared to what it was. But it's a nice balance between, do you want high frame rate or do you want the process to go quick? Anyway, you can see the entire character creation progress sequence in the background right now. Primarily the last part is still very much work in progress, but at least it covers the long wait time This part is, like I said, still very much work in progress. The idea is that you can select your unlocked weapons and spells. The idea is that during a normal playthrough, if you pick up a unique spell or weapon, it will go here. Like you can use it during the playthrough, of course, but once you die, you can, during your new character creation, select a few weapons or spells that you can bring with you to the next playthrough. After island generation is done, the player will get the ability to teleport to their starting position, which is different for every faction. Another new addition is a cool new event, the Faction War. This is being used during the opening sequence, the first few quests, which are very much part of the demo that I'm still working on. So when you return from the dungeon quest you had to the city, a faction war will break out between your faction and the faction that is its biggest enemy at that point. And you can see that happening in the background right now. What I'm also showing off here is the addition of unique NPCs. Before I was using static models for all NPCs, but now they can also use the same model as the player, providing a wide palette of different faces, hairdos, everything. And that's it for this time. As you can see, a lot of progress in a lot of different areas. This will happen more and more while I'm working towards a playable demo. I'm pretty close now. I believe the majority of the quest line is done. I think I need one more quest, which is a very easy one, so that should be doable. And then it's optimizing everything. In the last devlog, I mentioned that I was going to focus a lot on just content. I know I've not shown off that much here, but it is still very much work in progress. It's just very dull to show that. Like I can show you a bunch of axes I have implemented in the game, but yeah, that's not going to be interesting. So that's still very much going on. Aim is to have a playable demo at early 2025. Hopefully in the next devlog I have more info about that. If you haven't already, please subscribe to the channel and maybe leave a like and a reply, and I will see you next time.